When people look at my work, I want them to like question literally everything. I want them to question like their relationship to this work, like what this makes you feel, like what looking at this world makes you feel. I want you to like literally interrogate like how this work makes you feel about yourself. That's the purpose of my work, really, is to like make people ask questions and make people ask like, what does this mean, like why does this work make me feel this way. And me being non-binary is like a big part of that, because as you can see, the person, the head is like very androgynous, and that was on purpose. I identify as an androgynous person. In real life, I'm perceived as a man, as a woman. Like people call me sir, ma'am all the time. Literally, sometimes the same sentence, they be like, sir, ma'am, sorry. But
Welcome in, everyone. I'm so glad to have you all here together. Oh, I'm sorry. You're all still muted. Holy heck. I got it. 10 out of 10. Technical things have been conquered. Good job, everyone.
We're getting there eventually.
We've got it. We've got it. So welcome in, everyone. And let's actually just go ahead and get straight into our introductions. We can start with Faebryte and just kind of move over through everyone. So Faebryte, who are you? What is art to you? What do you do in art? And yeah.
Oh, I feel a little bit put on the spot as like the first person. God, how do I answer that? I think y'all were talking a little bit about like what is art, so I'll talk about what is me and then what is art to Faye. Hi everybody, my name's Faye. Pronouns she they. I am, I guess, what you would call a multimedia artist. Very like vaguely that purview. I minored in art in undergrad and recently graduated with a master's degree in studio art with the MFA program at the University of Pennsylvania's Weitzman School of Design, where I primarily worked in photography and virtual reality and augmented reality art installation pieces, and I mainly focused on trans bodies and sex workers in my body of work. Art can be a lot of things to a lot of people. I think it's a very technical practice, like to some. I went to more of those theory and like practice-based programs. So I guess in my case, as for like a lot of people, art is deeply personal. As somebody who is like black and somebody who's like trans, I made up the minority of the again, like I guess the US population, but like an art program, I think people think about like institutions of art as being like these egalitarian, like very progressive like places, but I went to one of the most conservative art schools like in the country. And that comes with like a litany of like problems, or I guess like barriers that you interface. But for me, with those like combined experiences and somebody is disabled, I make art by and about sex workers. It's my wheelhouse. I stream on here. I make content on OnlyFans. I've done sugar babying, full service sex work. And I think a lot of those perspectives often get omitted when we talk about the ways that we can like showcase art. We're on platforms like Twitch where I can't show a lot of the art pieces that are normally in a gallery setting.
Yeah.
So my background is primarily as like, I guess like the vaguely like an e-girl and a gallery artist. So to me, art is an opportunity to express, or I guess like push boundaries that I otherwise am faced with every day, both in like my artistic career and my day-to-day lived experience. I feel like as like a technical practice, I'm very self-taught, and that a lot of what I brought with me to that program were things that I was developing outside of school and refining like my ideas, like what does the gesture mean? And I think in that like sense that just making art in general can be very powerful, especially like, as queer people. I feel like if you are making art at any given time, that is just a radical expression, because if you look at galleries, if you look at online spaces, it's not a lot of us. It ends up being curated spaces for them, and we end up having like accolades like the first trans so and so, the first black, the first disabled person to be in an exhibit, and then we're just like nice, and you want to give proper praise to that situation happening, but every time it does happen, you kind of be like, it took this long. Sorry, that's such like a loaded answer to a
No.
question. But yeah, to me at least, like because I think everybody's gonna have like a different like perspective depending on where they're coming from. Art is deeply political and like personal. I don't think solely technical art really does exist, and I think when we were talking about it earlier in chat, it kind of came to the idea of like a technical skill or something that you refine over time. And that's not to discount like the prowess and skill that happens, but so much of what like my field is and what I do has involved working with people who don't have art degrees or don't have a formal background. And I think we often get labeled as outsider artists. And I think with
Mm.
that comes the expectation that we are succeeding, we're being seen in art despite like, being on the outside. And that outside is really margins being marginalized in spaces of art. So I think queer art, queer porn, any kind of thing that's like going against industry or some kind of like, big precedent is inherently like there's no apolitical way to be a black trans person and to like make art, frankly, because there's always going to be this lofty set of expectations based on like, if you get praised for art, is it you getting praised for you succeeding wherein the expectation would have been that you're not? And I think that, I'm really interested to see what conversations come up in this panel because I kind of have a very difficult relationship like with my art. I think that art, more than anything else, and its like prominence has been because of its like interaction with like capital. And I think that really does shape the way that you do make your art. I'm not going to say that art wouldn't exist if we abolished the capitalism or like the capital incentive that's kind of like very surface level. Oh, if we make capitalism go away, there won't be any art anymore. There will be art, but right now the way that art is made for a lot of us is for sustaining ourselves, and oftentimes we need to prioritize art that will pay us our rent or make content that will pay our rent rather than something that we might find fulfilling. So I think that's where I kind of get to the technical or those like formally trained skills where you think about art as product versus like art as practice or art as like gesture or like fulfillment. And honestly, if you want to do or like succeed in art, I recommend not doing art for a job or for a grade. It will really fuck up with your creative process and how you like value your work. And I feel like inherently burdensome with art is this expectation that your value as an artist is equal to your output. And I think when you get into conversations about ability, like disability, people's ability to use like their time of being a very valuable resource. How much time are you spending on dialysis or in chemotherapy? How much are you working multiple jobs? Like where is the time that you make your art? Anyway, that's my answer. Art is complicated. Art's complicated. I'm going to give it over to somebody else, but thanks for having me. I hope I can talk more about some of these ideas on the
Welcome
panel.
in, Faebryte. We're glad to have you here. Do you prefer to just go by Faye?
Yeah, Faye and Bright are like two words. It's kind of like I don't know, Roxanne. I don't know, Rox. I just threw up like a random like porn name. It's just just Faye is fine.
All right. Welcome in, Faye. Thank you so much. And Pink, welcome in. Who are you? What kind of art do you do? And what is art to you?
Hi, this is my first time on stream, so it took a while to like set up all the streamer stuff, I guess, the camera. I have my phone currently taped on the computer, so that's why. Hi, I'm Pink. I make the comic that you see online called Pinkwood Comics. And what art for me, well, is primarily to deliver a message because that's, well, for me, the reason why I started making comics. I never had any real education in art except if you count the art, high school classes. So when I started, it was pretty rough because I don't know how to draw, right? I never doodled in class or something like that. But I was inspired by, I don't know if you guys know, there's like a dinosaur comic online
Yes.
that they have like relatable, wholesome memes and also sometimes anti-capitalist. So seeing these comics relate to so many people despite being simple in their form gave me the inspiration to do art. So for me, of course, art doesn't have to, you don't need any like really formal training because I never had that. And it's to deliver a message because that's the reason why I started doing art.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Pink. Yeah. And you can tell your art is very in the simplistic comics, very message heavy, and that's something that really drew me into your art. So thank you for the work you do, and thank you for being here. Sunny, Spice, welcome in. Would you like to introduce yourself, talk about what you do in art and what art means to you?
Yes, of course. My name is Sonata. That's my full government name, but most people call me Sunny. My artist name is Spice Cam Visuals. I'm a digital artist, photographer, and videographer. I'm based in Atlanta. As far as my digital art, it's mostly comprised of, or it's like heavily based or founded and grounded in Afrofuturism and surrealism. So I use Procreate, I use Adobe, Lightroom, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, literally like all of that. But a platform that I'm just starting to get into or teaching myself. I'm also a self-taught artist. A platform that I'm teaching myself right now is Blender. That's also the platform that I made my piece in that's going to be talked about in here. So I used Blender 3D to make that, which was very, very challenging as an artist and as a Gemini who is used to being naturally good at things. It was very challenging for me to start that and to like teach myself that. But pretty much everything that I've used, like I've taught myself. And I started off with poetry as like my first art medium. I've been writing
Mm.
since like I learned to write. Literally like when I learned to like write letters and stuff, that I just remember like writing poetry, being like in elementary school, like making short stories and stuff like that. And from there I started like drawing. I used to draw like anime and like Naruto like all the time in my room and stuff like that. But when I was younger, I used to look at artists like Frida Kahlo and be like, I wish that I could do that. Like I want to do that. But while I love painting, I would never classify myself as a painter. That's not like my main medium. So it took me like a while to really like figure out what mediums I wanted to use or what mediums aligned the most with me and my artistry. So as far as like my background, I never went to art school. I have an undergrad degree in biomedical sciences and a master's in women's studies. When I got to my master's program, I started trying to incorporate my art into my academic work. And the more I started to do that, the more I realized that art is what I really wanted to do and that school like wasn't making me happy, academia wasn't making me happy, so once I graduated, I did like a complete like career change. I was going to school in Tampa. I moved to Atlanta with my mattress strapped to the top of my car. And I moved to Atlanta and I drove there and I started taking myself seriously as a digital artist. I started off like with photography, and then like as I mastered like my photography more and found like my niche, that's when I got into photo manipulation, and that's how
Mhm.
I pretty much found my artistic style as far as the styles that I use like in Procreate and Photoshop. In Blender, my style is like a little bit different because that's 3D art. It's a whole different ball game, a whole different ball game. So my art and the way that my art looks in 3D is a little bit different. Same themes, same key component of Afrofuturism and surrealism. But as far as what my art means to me, art has always been a method of self discovery for me. It's deeply, deeply, deeply personal. All mediums that I've used, it's just been something that's deeply, deeply personal for me. And the more I grow like into who I am, my art has played a central and integral role in me coming into myself and figuring out who I am as a person, especially being a black non-binary lesbian. My art really helped me to unpack that because for a
Mhm.
lot of my life I identified as cis and straight. I thought that I aligned with those things, but my art really helped me unpack who I actually am. And I often say that art is my friend told me the other day, like I showed her my piece, and she's like, this is like a portal. And I was like, wow, like art is really a portal. And that's just like how I feel about art. I feel like artists, we just like transcend like the physical world like with art, and with art we're able to illustrate worlds that exist like in other planes, whether it be like actual dimensions or just like in our minds, like we're able to like articulate and illustrate our experiences in so many multifaceted ways. And that's just like what art means to me, is deeply personal, deeply political, inherently political. Like like there's no way for it to not be political, because we're talking about our experiences, we're talking about the worlds that we live in, we're talking about the worlds that we see. um, you know, because with my art, with my like photo manipulation and stuff like that, when I take a regular photo, when I do a photo shoot, or like, you know, photography shoot or whatever, portrait shoot, it doesn't matter what it is, like when I recreate it in Blender or Procreate, that's what I see when I look at the original photo. So hopefully that wasn't a too long-winded answer, but
No.
yeah,
Not at
that's what
all.
art means to me, and that's who I am.
Thank you so much for
And thank
joining
you.
us, Sunny. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And Kaya, last but
It's me next.
certainly, yeah, not least.
Oh,
Who are you? What do you do with your art, and what is art to you?
all right. So I'm Kaya Oldacre, and I am a fantasy illustrator and also an animator. And so I've always been into art basically since I was really little, and it kind of it started off like when I was in all the way back in preschool. Basically, I remember this art teacher basically came round to the preschool, and they were kind of sitting with all the students and like teaching them how to paint a sunflower. And I remember all the way back then, they were kind of saying, "Oh, this person, this person's really good at painting." And I was obviously I didn't know kind of know at the time, kind of what was going on. But that was kind of the first time where I was actually told, that I had this skill for art, and that's kind of what triggered me to start getting more and more into it. And I noticed that kind of over time, I was drawing a lot of kind of worlds and stuff like that. And I think being an autistic kid, I was basically kind of stuck in my own head all the time. And I used to, daydream a lot. And I used to have all these characters and worlds, and they're really elaborate, like, ideas. And, I just kind of build on them and build on them and build on them. And, over time, these would come out in my drawings more and more and more, and they were kind of becoming more and more elaborate. And it was just really kind of awesome how elaborate all this was getting. And the thing is, my art was also really strange as well. There were always lots of like creatures and stuff in my work, because I know I'm going to be like showing a human character on stream today, but to be honest, I don't draw people as much as I draw creatures. And in my actual webcomic, there are a lot of there's a ton of creatures in the webcomic, because that's kind of what I've always been interested in. I've always been like huge into fantasy and stuff like that, and alternative realities. And over time, what started happening is throughout high school, I ended up kind of becoming known as the art kid, and everyone would always make me do drawings for them and stuff like that. So, it was just kind of, it was a pretty typical art kid experience, to be honest, where, if someone wanted me to draw something, I'd always end up drawing it for them. And like, it was really cool as well, because I had a lot of friends we started a little art club when I was 13, and I was teaching my friends at the age of 13 how to draw stuff. It was just really strange, and it was really fun as well. And I also had like all these like interests that I bring into my art. So I mentioned in chat earlier that I kind of said that science is a type of art almost, because I absolutely loved science when I was younger as well. I still do love science, to be honest, but like when I was younger, I just loved like planets and aliens. Oh my god, I loved aliens so much. I still love aliens. And I think a huge influence for me loving aliens is like Ben 10 and Abe's Odyssey. Oh, I love Abe's Odyssey. It's based. Anyway, where was I? I'm distracting myself again. Sorry, if I start going completely off on one, then that's the autism, sorry.
You're entirely
Anyway,
fine.
Autistic, you are totally fine. I'm sorry for going off on my intro too.
It's all right. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, I was really into like aliens and stuff and creatures and all the way back then. And then, what eventually started happening was when I was a teenager, I started making contacts with people in the industry. Like I was visited by by an artist by an animator from Disney who I still talk to today, and we were having this great conversation because I'd finished my first short film by then, called The Rocket Crafters, which is no longer on YouTube, which is quite sad. But so that was kind of my step into the art industry, if you will, kind of the very commercial side of art. And over time, I kind of started picking up more and more and more contacts. Like there was one, I went to my local comic book convention a lot, and I met some absolutely phenomenal artists there, and I was just so blown away by all the work. I've been trying to book a table at that convention for ages, and I seem to be having no luck doing it. So, oh well, maybe I'll get there eventually. But anyway, so, sorry, I lost track again. Oh yeah, so eventually what kind of happened is I went to an art college to do a foundation diploma. And I think back then I was very much one of those art is a product kind of people, unfortunately. I'm not like that anymore, but back then my brain was really on art as a product, and I've learned to kind of really undo that over the last several years, so I'll get into a little bit more about that soon. But my work was kind of getting quite commercialized, and I was really trying to build a portfolio and really trying to network, and I really wanted to kind of gun for getting actual, like a job in the art industry, and I want to work for Disney and Blizzard and, oh God, Blizzard, I'm not even going to go there. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a really huge artist. I was getting a bit full of myself, to be honest. Thinking, oh man, I'm going to be super successful one day as this really cool artist and stuff. And, I was getting more and more contacts, and I went to university, did an animation degree, and I went on after that to do a master's in creative technology as well. And what eventually happened was, after kind of all this build up, and I was kind of really, really gunning it and like doing the whole grind set crap, like working like sometimes up to 14 hours a day, really practicing art, I get like repetitive strain injury. Oh man, the pain is good. And it's like, you don't get it, do you? And, I really got into this kind of concept art bro kind of stuff, and, all these tutorials, all these videos, just completely flooding my mind with all this kind of stuff. And it kind of got to a point where I started freelancing, because, see, the thing is, what happens when you're in kind of that university environment is you're very sheltered, and you can kind of be in a situation where what you're doing now doesn't really apply to the real world in a lot of ways. And it's like, when I started freelancing, because the problem is, I think a lot of my want to be a good artist was built up because I have autism, and because I've been kind of thinking for years, somehow my art is going to help me kind of overcome my autism, and then, it'll all be okay after that. But I think when I became a freelancer, I kind of got hit with the reality stick, and it was like, oh, me trying to be successful at art is not going to get rid of my autism or anything like that. I don't like to say get rid of it, but that was the mindset at the time. And I kind of started to realize, the art world does not give a shit about disabled people. And the industry is so brutal and unfair, and you have to literally be already successful to get anywhere, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And the whole art as a product thing is just so big in like the concept art world, and over time I got more and more and more disillusioned, and I kind of came to this realization. I'd been practicing to get into the industry for all these years, and I was just like completely left behind afterwards, and just struggling and just thinking, what the F do I do now? I mean, I am kind of getting somewhere, to be honest, with regards to my work now, but that's only because I went kind of the more political route. It's because I just got more and more and more, you know, just so irritated with kind of being left behind almost, and you know how the industry like just will not accommodate disabled people. You know, I have autism and I have agoraphobia as well, which means if I go out in an open field or something like that, you know, my brain gets confused, thinks I'm on a high building or something, and will start acting like you're going to fall off. But fall off what? You're in the middle of an open field. You know, it's a horrible thing to have to deal with. And I've spoken to other autistic people who actually have a similar problem, and it's like, what the hell is causing this? And you know, the research is lacking in that field, so I don't know how the hell I'm supposed to manage that. And you know, over time, I just realized, you know, I'm stuck. And, you know, I've got all these skills. I could, you know, theoretically get work, but, you know, it's theoretically, it's. I think 2020 was kind of where it just got really bad, and I basically had a breakdown in 2020 almost. I just completely lost it and just thought, I don't know what to do. You know, I can't get a quote unquote normal job because of my disability, you know, because of my sensory problems. I have to have 100% control over my environment. Otherwise, you know, if I don't have 100% control over my environment, then it's going to trigger my sensory problems. And it's just horrible. But what I kind of realised was, when I started getting into the leftist, kind of leftist communities, and how accepted I felt around other leftists, and how I thought, I don't have to do this anymore. You know, and that's when I started kind of reclaiming my art and kind of pulling away from commercial art more and more and more. And, you know, I started to actually have fun with my art again, because the more I tried to go the commercial art route, you know, the more depressing it became. And I think that also I managed to start really discovering a lot about myself by doing kind of more out there art again. Because the thing is, like I said, I love to draw creatures and stuff like that. I mean, that's never going to change, you know, regardless of whether capitalism is here or not. I'm always going to want to do like weird creatures and stuff like that, because that's my inner world, and I love to express my inner world on the outside somehow. And one of the things I found interesting about my creatures is how much I relate to them. And I was kind of thinking to myself, have I seen myself as a creature this whole time? You know, almost. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just... I've always loved to draw like monsters that are relatable, because in a way I kind of feel like maybe it's because I've always felt like a kind of some creature in a way. And I know that sounds absolutely horrible, but that's just how I feel, and I can't really change the way I felt about myself for the last, you know, several years. And I am starting to finally kind of accept who I am and finally be like, oh, actually, you know, I'm more comfortable in who I am now that I've started kind of getting more political with my work. And you know, I was actually really inspired by when I started reading. When I started hearing about Alan Moore and his comics.
Kaya?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're 30 minutes into the stream, and I want to make sure we can get through everyone's pieces.
Sorry, am I
holy cow! No, please don't apologize, because you just hit a really I feel like that's a really, really deep point there on how art really is, you know, I feel like each of us has hit, you know, art is pretty personal, and please don't apologize for that beautiful expression on like what art has been to you and everything. But I want to make sure we don't miss your piece, because holy cow.
Sorry.
No, please don't apologize. No. Holy cow. So thank you all for your responses. We've got such a range of different artists in here, with some similar threads in what art means to you, and some of the struggles in the art world. You know, how does art relate to capital, the technical skills involved in art and the whatnot. But I definitely want to make sure that we get over to your pieces, and we're actually going to be starting with Faye's. So Faye brought us this piece. And I know, Faye, that you were mentioning this was one of your pieces because you are more involved in expressing things regarding sex work, and some of your like your game work, for example, is centered around sex work and the whatnot. So this was one of the ones that's possible to be on Twitch, right? What would you like to express about this piece? What do you see in regards to gender? Go ahead and introduce the piece to us.
Yeah, so the portrait that you're seeing right now is a video portrait I did of my friend, like Rowan, and this was a series of video portraits I did specifically of non-white sex workers. And I think the need to highlight this is important because, as with most things, as even like with art or these, quote, leftist spaces, sex work looks different and operates different on different individuals. And I think particularly something that came to my light like in 2020 when I saw a lot of discourse happening on Twitter from different sex workers who have different levels of involvement is that we are not all fighting the same struggles or the same battles all the time. And there's ways to be marginalized as a sex worker, but still benefit from privileges compared to the other ones. And we see this both in like the degree of safety of our ability to do our work. And we also see this as, representation, which is kind of like a little bit of a trap. I think, sorry, I'm already like fucking 2 minutes in and quoting a dead white man. But if you look at Foucault, he talks a lot about the panopticon and looking in and how giving something discursive meaning can itself be like a trap. And I think what that means in terms of like, trans people or like non-white people, it's that just seeing them isn't, enough. And I think there is a very big risk of thinking that you understand a topic, a body of work, a subject, of people, and then having, misrepresentations of it. And I think you can't see that anymore, more than like sex work, and particularly if you look at it and we're just talking about porn, the people end up being most marginalized are like, Asian men, masculine people, or black women and black femmes. And this also doesn't even necessarily have to do with the way that we relate to our own gender. People are always going to perceive me, even like the work that I do, that I'm she, they, like whatever, just think I'm a man in makeup. And I think when we talk about like art as product and we talk about sex work as product, the way that we have to make those compromises for what makes us feel affirmed, what makes us money, is very evident. And particularly my undergraduate degree was actually in ICT. I studied computer science, I did hackathons, I really worked with computer visualization, and particularly one way in which like sex workers and specifically like, non-white ones are often like targeted and, just like maintain under this like constant state of surveillance is with facial recognition technology. And facial recognition technology, frankly, has a race problem. Very often, when we see ways that these things like work, they're using comparative databases to compare to a set of like faces they have and produce matches. And time again, you see that this is false positives for particularly black people, dark-skinned people, and just like non-white people. And these biases end up like manifesting so much by who is like making the technologies and the way that cameras actually capture people. They're tools, they're really imperfect ones. And historically you can just go and like see or just talk to like any black photographer, the ways that these technologies meter. I'm not impressed by people who take photos and like say, oh, look, I didn't have to edit or touch this up. If you're working with dark skin tones, you often do, and I do have to color grade a lot of my work. So when I wanted to photograph a lot of sex workers, because again, my body of work is mainly photography, I kind of ran into this dilemma where if I was explicitly talking about and photographing sex workers and, highlighting erotic labor, then I'm essentially, depending on the audience, the way that this work can be interacted with, giving people a database saying here basically is like a really good data set to train if you want to identify non-white sex workers, improve the way in which you can surveil them. And I kind of ran into that as a dilemma because I still want to give stories, give narratives, but being outed, or at least like if you're already out and front facing, being known as a sex worker has a lot of risk associated with it. I'm a full-time teacher. I am starting my job this Monday and I'm working with kids, teaching them how to read. And there's a lot of people who think I can't teach their kids how to read because I'm a sex worker. So what I wanted to do then is take photographs of people that, or rather represent them in a way that would both give their visage, give them the representation that I want to see, which is more people who perform erotic labor given the same kind of platform that other people do. And it's not to say that we haven't seen sex workers or sex work in galleries. It's often the subject position of them being from people from Monet to Picasso and all those people kind of suck is just that they're, products, they're objects versus like, being the subjects of the work very explicitly in like that context. So this portrait that you're seeing like right now, again, the only safe for Twitch like one is of basically the color palette reduced down to 16 colors. And then what I would do is basically make what's known as a bitmap. Bitmap basically takes an image and then you would shrink it down to whatever color palette you choose. In this case, the one I chose, like right here, of 16 colors. And then I reduced it to 240 pixels. And for perspective, that's about the resolution or like the length of pixels of a Game Boy Advance. Then from there, I ran an algorithm and this like program that only works on my phone now. So a lot of these technologies are like hard to just like maintain, especially Connect Art. You better have a fucking Windows 7 PC saved somewhere where you can keep working on that. But anyway, I replaced each pixel with a circle, or rather an ellipse, magnitude 1 to 30. And the way that I rendered this was inherently generative so that it looked different. And each of them, like, and another thing about this is size has a very big impact in like the way that you see this. So I wanted to represent these people in a way that captured like their likeness that is, I think, like still representative, and so you can still see race. You can still see this person's representation, but is useless to a facial recognition AI or being able to like append this and reliably. You could not use this art in like a court of law to incriminate somebody or get them fired. So in this case, it is about 40 frames. It's not like the 12, 24, 36 thing. It exists kind of on itself. And I had like a series of these. I've also not been very active on social media or really sharing or talking about like my art. This has been very like academic, but it's a series of portraits that are like this. And my idea is also thinking about like the gallery space, because like, I'm a gallery artist, and like how to install these. And ideally it looks like projections. So essentially this just plays like in sequence. And that's really just like, I don't want to see like just like that's it, but that's kind of like the body of the work. And I'm not just going to talk about my thesis and how it related to that, but was really important to me to be able to represent people whose, I think, narratives often get like, omitted because of the way that, I'm talking about online and sharing things on social media. It's not just about what you are seeing, it's what you're not. And I think time and time again, especially since that December update in, 2021, I think it was 2020, sex workers get banned on the platform all the time, sometimes not even for posting any like explicit content. If it's just like, doing normal run-of-the-mill photo shoots, and these verified people who post more revealing photos or do these skimpy photo shoots don't get banned by the virtue of their models, their celebrities, and this is just something that they're doing. And when you try to do that for a living, when you try to do that for like, self-sustaining yourself, and a lot of this has precedence. I would hope the chat knows, but if you don't, SESTA FOSTA are a set of bills that were introduced and signed into law, I think that 2 years ago now, well, 3, and severely curtailed people's ability to safely, do and conduct like sex work, be that online sex work or like, full service. I'm not going to get into that, but inherently, the way that I think about going back to the gallery is that Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to come into like my show, tell me I've been a bad little girl, and take all of my projectors and tell me I can't make art for a month. And I think that like in this like way, to me, getting to present this show and show this like in a gallery setting, which I will be in, late spring, depending on how it goes.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's my thesis exhibition. Yeah, and particularly most of the people that I photograph for this are BIPOC. They're all trans. And I really wanted them to like be seen in this like way and just have me represented. I think I'm just going to maybe let that sit and let other people get to talk about their art, answer questions. But it's work that's really important to me. It's ongoing, and I think it's just, something that I ostensibly don't see having like an end. Just thinking about where I want to show the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll try to keep these discussions down to like about 15 minutes so we can make sure everyone gets in. And but we have a few minutes left over if anyone has any questions. I know I am really, I love the thought that you put into, making sure that these people who are working in the sex work industry are safe and avoiding that surveillance. I was very curious as to why there was that ambiguity, but I think the way that you still preserved what you did is really incredible. I loved the also expression of androgyny in that. Um, yeah, I just.
Oh, Lumi, your mic cut out for me for a second.
Oh,
Could you
did
repeat
it?
that, please?
I was just saying I'm really impressed with it. I like the that we get that representation of a sex worker that appears more androgynous and all of the thought that you put into preserving their privacy and the whatnot is
Oh,
really
yeah.
incredible
It
while
reminds
still
me,
getting that representation.
if chat wants to refer like like the subject Rowan uses they them pronouns. They also have like a lot of front facing like work. I just forgot to mention that earlier.
Well, thank you. All right. Did anyone want to add anything, ask any questions or anything, or?
I really liked how this turned out. I absolutely love the iridescent look of the background as well.
Mhm.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that I also got rid of black, white, and gray, and mid-tone gray for the sake of like the work, because I think a lot of like sense making for these is often by finding like the black point and white point and then kind of like taking a guess as to what somebody's skin tone is. And I think one thing I also like omitted is that the way that a lot of facial recognition technologies like work is that it's the distance between eyes and how they appear. So consistently, the eyes end up being these things that are like ever changing. But I think the ways that I kind of like came about this is I actually started losing my hearing and my vision after I got COVID, really early on into the pandemic, and a lot of the way these are like rendered kind of came from like a way of I was stuck with this body of work and not knowing what to do. But I have like visual snow now. I basically can't look at a white wall and just see white, and I just see like a
Oh.
bunch of like in between colors, and like everything kind of has a color now. I have tinnitus. I know it's pronounced tinnitus. Chat, come at me. Uh, so there's just like noise in
Oh, I get
everything.
that sometimes, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's forever. Oh my god. So I
Oof.
think that kind of like way in that like it's not like explicitly part of it, but I think, as a disabled person whose disabilities just got worse after getting sick, it's inherently shapes like the way that like I thought about this being interpreted, and like everything kind of feels not this drastic. I promise I can still read chat and see all of your lovely faces here today. But it just like our experiences do shape how we do and approach our art. And I think one thing that I really liked hearing about people's intros was that art was a tool of self-discovery for them. And I think that's pretty dope of art making. Yeah.
Thank you, Faye. Next, we're going to be moving on to Kaya's piece, which I know Kaya spoke a bit on character design, and I think we're actually looking at that specific character design, a specific character design. Kaya, would you like to introduce your piece?
Yeah, this is Ludwig Stryker. He is one of my favorite characters of all time. The reason why this character is kind of so important to me is because this was kind of when I started just getting absolutely sick of industry art after a while, and I just thought, you know what, I've had it. And Ludwig was basically like, I'm just going to rebel now. I'm done. I'm sick of this art as a product bullshit. Just no more, please stop the torture. So what I decided to do was, for more context, by the way, this happened around the time J.K. Rowling started going off on her transphobic screed.
Oof.
So I was like, I'm going to make a transgender character deliberately designed to piss off transphobes as much as possible. And I was just like, I remember showing this to one of my friends. They might be watching this stream. I showed this to one of my friends, the initial concept art, and the first thing he said was, "This looks like something that's designed to piss off the far right." And I was like, "Yes." And I was just like, I am so done. All the stuff kind of down here is like with the like that is the amount of kind of work I wanted to put into making sure I had the design right. So the design at the top is actually the final design, and like all of the stuff down here, all the sketches and stuff, I did an entire page of just figuring out what his hairstyle was going to be, because I just wanted to kind of make sure that I had this character right. And I spent ages kind of designing like what would the logo be on his shirt, which like is an extremely on the nose reference to Antifa, like the Antifa logo. It's just incredibly on the nose. Like, that's kind of the point of the character, though. It's not subtle, it's not clever, and just the giant anarchy symbol in the background. It's just, that's just kind of the point of the character, and the point of Flowerpunk, actually. The webcomic that he comes from is that it's just so unsubtle. It is so kind of just absolutely wild, and that's kind of what I want it to be, because it's a comic about anarchism and kind of celebrating, just fun and community and kind of the side of anarchism that you rarely see in media, because usually it's just, oh, anarchists want to blow things up, and it's like, no, anarchists don't want to blow things up. And I wanted to kind of have this character who's like, just, you think he kind of leans into the stereotype at first, but then once the character develops throughout the story, you realize, oh, actually, this guy's edgy as hell, but he's also an incredibly caring character who genuinely loves humanity and wants to see, he doesn't want the human race to go extinct, because in the comic of Flowerpunk, I'll try not to go into the lore too much because it's incredibly dense, but there's basically this thing, this plague called the Rot, which is slowly killing the entire planet, and it's kind of a stand-in for the decay of capitalism. And the Rot is basically a collective trauma of the world, and what he's doing is trying to help the city of Weirden, which is like this universe's version of London, not fall into this rot, and he's trying to save as many people as he can by doing what anarchists do, mutual aid work, and they've got they live in a giant factory, an abandoned power plant where they've got some permaculture gardens, and it's just, it's like this really cool kind of counter society where it's built around compassion, rather than anything to do with capitalism. And I've just got some notes here. I'm just gonna have a quick look through these. Sorry, back on track. So I'll try my best to keep on track with this character. But with regards to the development of this character, because what I kind of discovered about myself recently is that I'm demigender. So I kind of have this awkward thing where I sometimes wonder, do I count as cis or trans? I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of on this border there. And so I kind of feel like, should I be writing a trans masculine character if I'm not a trans man? And there's a part of me that's been like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but at the same time, I really want to write a trans character. And, that's one of the reasons why I just really went out of my way to do my research for this, because it was, first of all, because I'm just so sick and tired of the transphobia in this country. It's just driving me absolutely up the wall, basically. And it's also the fact that I just want to get rid of my own internalized transphobia as much as possible. Try and just because I don't want that there. I want to try and be the best ally I can be. And on top of that, I want to make Ludwig a good character. I want him to be fleshed out. I want him to actually be, really interesting, because I know the tendency with some, well-meaning cis people, they will often make, good representation of a character, but it will often be quite bland and uninteresting as well. So how do you also make a character who's both good representation while not being boring? And it's like, I think I got to a point where I was confident enough to start actually writing the character, because he's been in development for about a year, I'd say. No, more than that, actually. And, I don't think my experience is too removed from his either, because it's like I have experienced gender dysphoria as a demigender person. And I have kind of, I know... Oh, sorry, I've gone off track a bit. It's not, like I said, also being like autistic as well, I know what it's like to be, marginalized to a degree, not in the same way as trans men, obviously. And that's why I would suggest, when it comes to writing, trans characters, just talk to people from that experience. It's really not that hard. There's so many people out there who I've spoken to who like cis people who want to write trans characters, and it's like, oh, but I'm really worried about getting it wrong. But just talk to people in the community, engross yourself in the community. Really get into, making friends. Just making friends as well and stuff like that. Because that's the thing, and it's like. It's just been a really fun experience as well. Just, making so many friends and stuff like that. And I don't know, this character means a lot to me because he's kind of allowed me to really explore. Like, well, first of all, it's just to explore a side of me that I kind of hid away. He helps me come out as pansexual and demigender. And on top of that, through learning about issues in the trans community, I've made so many amazing friends, and or like people from your community as well, Lumi. And it's just been really great. So, sorry, am I going on a bit too much here?
No, this is so perfect. Your character depth, absolutely very deep. And I love how you get into how, this creativity, being able to create this character has helped you accept parts of yourself and experience diving into your own identity and kind of sussing that out a bit. That's really powerful.
But I was going to say, it's like, what's really cool about it as well, it's like, because he's an anarchist character as well, like, he kind of allows me to express kind of the more, like, the side of myself that I kind of wouldn't be able to in terms of, like, just being, like, really, how do I put this, extra, and like I don't know, it's just fun. He's a really fun character to write when I'm writing him, and again, just kind of being able to just really go off the wall with ideas with him, and it's just fun. And I think that's the most important thing, is that I'm having fun, writing this character. And I was thinking to myself, I am having so much fun with this, and that's great. And that's what art should be about. Is also, I think fun should be in art as well as, expression. And doing Flowerpunk and just thinking of all the, like, what the commune looks like, what the permaculture gardens look like, what all the other characters look like, it's just kind of almost allowed me to think of what I would want to see in, if I was going to live in, like, what kind of future would I want to see? What kind of world do I want to live in? So, and I also kind of, sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna ask a question to the rest of the panel. Like, I know we've got some photographers in here, and then Pink. And I was wondering if drawing for Pink. Pink, you've got little Wug characters that are adorable, but for the photographers, I was curious, like, when doing your photography work, has that impacted your own understanding of your own gender, your own identities, or just creating characters, doing the work that you do? I know, Pink, you've probably become much more Wug-like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My fans, when I told them I would go on stream, like, they were really surprised to see that I was a person, because they really thought that I was a pink blob that looks like a bird. Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Sunny? Or Faye? Has the way that Kaya brings in that, like, exploration of identity, have you experienced that in any of your work?
Sorry, I went to the bathroom.
No, that's
and
totally
came right
fine.
back.
Welcome back.
But I guess, like, to answer, like, what I heard, because I caught most of what Kaya had said, is that I think that as making art, if you're, like, going back to being Black and trans, I feel like within these communities, like BIPOC folks, even if you're not just, like, making, like, erotic, like, art, I feel like there's this, like, degree that we often don't need to label ourselves as leftists or our political alignments. And I think that should be, like, a little bit, like, evident because of the spaces that we interact with. We're often subjected to this, like, marginalization based on, like, our identities, which isn't to say every Black person or every Black trans person is, like, a leftist, like, by virtue. But if you see somebody's, like, art, like, deductively, if they're, like, posting anything from like pornography to things about reparations, any kind of like theory. It kind of just like, is self-evident. And I think that often when we like explore like what we're like doing, to relate it to a little bit of the work I was doing before, is that I wanted to look at non-medically transitioning trans people. Did a whole body of that. They're all nudes. I couldn't show any of them like today. And I was really frustrating reading that or showing that to a critique or a room full of like other artists, because I feel like one of the things is like, I find myself wanting to determine the genders of each of these people because I didn't give names, I didn't give anything. And that was kind of like frustrating because regardless of the way that we like identify or describe, our bodies are going to be regarded very differently. And I think that
Yes.
the presence of this, and something that I fight against and like, to cover a lot of my work, is this idea of trans misogynoir, which is the idea specifically in ways in which trans femmes and like, black femmes are like specifically subjected to a disproportionate like amount of hate. And you could just say really like, oh yes, hello fellow trans woman, and like, yeah, I'm going to relate to somebody or relate to like, a non-binary femme or something like that. But the ways in which like we were regarded, and the way that like basically if you're a black trans woman to a lot of people, you're a black man, you're a danger, you are, a potential threat. And I think that in particular, regardless of the way that we identify, the way that we have, and I'm not going to butcher Judith Butler's gender performativity, but the way like that we are read has very drastic impacts on like the way our art's perceived and the way it's valued. That's it.
No, absolutely.
I'm just going to quickly address something in chat. So I've had a few people kind of say that my work reminds them of Arcane. I was just going to say, what's really weird about this is that Ludwig was created all the way back in 2020. So this was before Arcane came out. And then when Arcane came out, I was like, oh my god, this is just like my comic. So I'm going to... So I'll try and wrap things up a little bit here now. What I'm trying to do with this character and all of my art is that I'm leaning into the industry kind of art as a product type art on purpose, and then I'm pulling a bait and switch. So, and the same goes for my webcomic as well. It's kind of leaning into what's popular on webtoons, but then it's like, oh, but suddenly you're sneaking some really radical messages into this work, and people are going to be none the wiser. And I just think there's just something really rebellious and hilarious to me about that. Just like being, oh, you trained for years to become an industry artist, and then you're just using all of your skills to spread anti-capitalist messages. I just don't know why. It's really funny to me. And I feel like, again, it kind of ties back into what flower punk is about, where it's like, it's supposed to be kind of putting you in a false sense of security and then just completely pulling the rug out from under your feet with regards to what it's actually about. And again, I just love being able to do that. Yeah, so I don't know what you think of that. I just thought it was really funny.
Thank you, Akaya. Yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think the being able to bring the critique in that way is interesting, subversive, and I have such a deep appreciation for how this character plays out, especially the contrast in the representation of anarchy and how it kind of leans into some of those tropes with the spikes and the edginess, but then you get the more heart and compassion and the whatnot. I think I like the subversiveness in your work for sure.
Thank you. If I could sum up the character, I'd say he's a very caring edgelord.
We love it. We love a caring edgelord. One last question for you, Kaya. Kaya, how much would you say Alan Moore inspired your work? This is from Red49.
I only really started reading his work recently, so because beforehand I'd just kind of seen some video essays about what he did, and I really like kind of his approach towards comics. And then eventually I actually read V for Vendetta because I wanted to kind of see how he tackled anarchism, and I honestly think that just the way that he did it is absolutely fantastic in that it shows that anyone can get pushed into fascism, and I really appreciate that message. The idea that you've got to be so careful because, it's a very easy thing to get sucked into. But I think I want to also make sure that Flower Punk is not just kind of a V for Vendetta clone or anything like that. Like, I kind of want to make sure that Ludwig isn't like, one of these vigilante type characters, because he's not. I mean, he definitely picks fights with people and stuff like that, but he's not. He's definitely not a vigilante. He's part of the community defense team. So, I want to kind of differentiate my work enough. But yeah, I do honestly think that Alan Moore's work has really inspired me, and also the Sandman comics as well. I just like the how Neil Gaiman approaches urban fantasy, because I just like softer world building, if I'm going to be honest. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop rambling on about that.
No need to apologize. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and get on to Sunny's piece. So we have an actual video here. So I'm gonna play. It's only 15 seconds. But I know this might be a time that the panelists, you might want to tune into the stream and have your audio on to catch the audio. So this, I'm going to be honest, Sunny, I was surprised when you sent me this. I did not expect it. I was like, we're taking a big turn here with your work, because I peek in on your work occasionally. And I'm like, what's Sunny up to now? And I was like, this is very different. And you said you've been around working on stuff
Blender.
regarding Blender. So what is this? And what does this have to do with perspectives on gender in art?
Yes, awesome. So the name of this piece, this is actually, the video is just like, I haven't dropped the piece yet. I'm going to be dropping it as an NFT on Zora on the 22nd of this month. But this is a promo video, but the project, this is called Renaissance. Renaissance is a derivative of the word Renaissance. It means rebirth, like restart, rejuvenation, that kind of thing. And as I've just been trying to like rediscover myself, like as a person and like as an artist, like just trying to figure out like my niche in art, because also being a Gemini, like I am interested in like so many things, like so many things intrigue me. And over the past couple of years, I've been trying to just recarve out my artistic style and really challenge myself and really find what's most meaningful to me. And it's just been like a big journey for me. Like I started off with like 2D art and stuff like that, and I love 2D art, and I will still continue to do 2D art, like on the side and stuff. But 3D art has just been a realm that I've always wanted to dive into since I was a child. And now I'm finally getting to do that, which is really awesome. So I use Blender to create Renaissance. And if you're not familiar with Blender, you open it up, it's literally a blank canvas. It's blank. And so everything in the scene that you see, like I literally created. And that's another thing that I really like about just like art in general, but especially about like 3D art. I don't know, the way that it made me feel and the way that it continues to make me feel, like watching that video and seeing that I made that like from literally nothing, it's just like mind blowing to me. But I forgot to say earlier that my pronouns are they them, and I am a black non-binary lesbian artist. And since my artwork is grounded in Afrofuturism and surrealism, my identities as a black non-binary lesbian artist are super super important and integral. So when I created the face, the head that you see in that video, I use like a black person's picture to like mold the face, because basically it's like an add-on software that you have to add to Blender in order to create like human faces or whatever kind of faces you want to make and stuff like that. So that's how I created the face. And from there, just going back to like what the meaning of the piece is, like I said, Renaissance means the beginning. So this is the first part of like a series of 3D pieces that I'm going to be minting on Zora. And each piece is going to tell a part of a very large story. And obviously, Renaissance is the beginning of the story. So in the scene, you see like this head, you see like this world around the head, and it zooms into, or the beginning of the video is zoomed into the sphere that's like in the middle of the head. So another big key theme in my artwork is subconsciousness, like tapping into subconsciousness, tapping into like the worlds and thoughts that exist in our minds that like are the deepest but also like most untapped parts of who we are. That's what I like to really illustrate in my artwork and really like interrogate, and that's what I like to make people feel when they look at my work. When people look at my work, I want them to like question literally everything. I want them to question like their relationship to this work, like what this makes you feel, like what looking at this world makes you feel. You know, I want you to like literally interrogate like how this work makes you feel about yourself. That's the purpose of my work, really, is to like make people ask questions and make people ask like, what does this mean? Like, why does this work make me feel this way? And you know, me being non-binary is like a big part of that, because as you can see, the person the head is like very androgynous, and that was on purpose. I identify as an androgynous person. You know, in real life, I'm perceived as a man, as a woman. Like people call me sir, ma'am all the time. Literally, sometimes the same sentence, they be like, sir, ma'am, sorry. But like, you know, so that's like a big part of that artwork as well. Just you know, illustrating um gender in a non-binaristic kind of way, and illustrating or showing the fact, how do I even explain this? One thing, let me go back a little bit. One thing that I thought about as the other panelists were talking was being perceived, and what that means being non-binary, and also like what that means in art. Because, you know, art is meant to be perceived, you know,
Mhm.
like art, you know, we create art, you know, for ourselves. A lot of artists just create art for themselves or whatever, but, you know, art is made to like be perceived. And getting more into my 3D art style really allowed me or encouraged me to interrogate the way that I think about perception and being perceived. Because with my art, I'm okay with my art being perceived, but then like when it comes to like me as a person and like walking out like in the world, like I hate being perceived by people, because, you know, it's always like an assumption, like, you know, this is, you know, they must be a woman, or they must be like whoever, like whatever. So like my artwork has also made me interrogate like what being perceived, you know, like means to me, and what it means to my art. So that's like the main like foundational aspect of that piece and what this series is going to be about. And also like with my artistic style, deep tones are really important to me. Like in the scene, you can see that there's like a lot of pink, a lot of purple, a lot of blues. And for me, you know, since Afrofuturism is an integral part of my work, you know, I love to illustrate the connections between us and celestial bodies, because we're literally created from the same compounds: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, etc. We're created from the same compounds as the stars, galaxies, literally everything. So we're all like spiritually connected and energetically connected. You know, that's why astrology is a thing, you know, even though a lot of people don't believe in it, but it's literally a language of energetic relationships. And that's what I'm portraying through my art, is the relationship between you know, different energies, and how that relates to gender, and how that relates to my concept of my own gender. And through my art, you know, art has done a played a huge role in me being able to even unpack my gender. You know, living in a very cis heteronormative world, like where you're, especially being black, like it's super cis heteronormative, and you're taught like your whole life, like you have to be like this, you have to dress like this. And, you know, like historically, gender is inherent, like the concepts of gender, the normalized concepts of gender, like in Western worlds, is inherently anti-black. And going back to the transatlantic slave trade, like our black people's ancestors were literally stripped of gender and sexuality. So it's very important for me to illustrate the power in black gender and identity and sexuality in my artwork, and showing how multifaceted that is, and how it's not one dimensional, and how blackness is not one dimensional, being non-binary is not one dimensional. And that's why I started making my artwork in 3D.
I was just
Because I
gonna
was just
ask
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's why I started making my artwork in 3D, because I just kept feeling like there was something missing from my work. I just kept feeling like there was something missing. Like, I loved the stuff that I was making in Procreate and Photoshop and stuff like that. Like, I loved it, but I was just like, there's something missing. And then once I started doing work in Blender, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is it. So that's pretty much everything, I think.
Yeah, I really like your color palette, I gotta say. And I feel like the gold against the rest of the color palette really, really sticks out in an incredible way. Is there is there a reason you chose gold specifically?
Honestly, like when I create, my creative like process, I usually have like an idea before I create something, but I don't go into it with a plan. Like, I don't go into it with like, I'm gonna color it this way. I literally, and that's why it takes me such a long time to complete stuff. Like, it took me literally like almost a month to make that. I'm not
Mm.
gonna lie to y'all. Like, I mean, I wasn't like on it
It.
like every day, like 24 hours a day, like, working on it. But like, the work that I was doing on it, like, every other day or whatever days, it totaled out to like, it took me like a month, to make that. And because it takes so long for me, because I do a lot of trial and error in my work, I just like, for me, my artwork is like a big ass puzzle. Ooh, I don't know if we can curse. It's a big puzzle.
You're good.
Don't worry.
It's a big puzzle. My artwork to me is like a big puzzle that's already like made subconsciously in my mind, but I have to just like figure out how to piece it together. And it takes me so long to like make stuff, because I'm constantly just like, does this fit? No, this doesn't feel right. And I'm just like, doing stuff until it feels right. And I really honestly like credit that to like my spirituality, really, because like just going off of instinct and just going off of like what my spirit is telling me, and like, I'm not gonna complete like a piece of artwork until like I feel like that's what it's supposed to be. So as I was creating, the head was originally, I think, like some other colors, but gold was just like really like what stood out to me, especially like how much it symbolizes just like internal power too.
Mm.
um I think that's why gold really stuck out to me, and that's why I ended up picking that. And just like you said, like the contrast between the gold and like the rest of the planets, like I wanted everything in the background to stand out, but I also wanted the viewer to really pay attention to this head, and to also like the pink sphere that's in the middle of the head, because the pink sphere is a portal, and going through that portal is going to lead to like the next pieces in the series.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing this your oh shoot, hang on. Wrong click. There we go. Your piece with us. That's very interesting, and I was so surprised to see this turn for your work. Thank you, Sunny. And
Problem.
trying to keep within time limits, time constraints. We've got our last, but certainly not our least. We've got Pink Wugs comic.
Hi.
Yeah. So, do you wanna introduce your piece to us, Pink?
Yeah. So when I make comics, the primary goal is so I don't have to explain it. So I will talk about a little bit of the things around it. I try to really see what I create as memes, and I mean that in like the best way possible, not as like, oh, they're low effort or something like that, but as pieces that are meant to convey a string of information very quickly, and to have that string of information be transmitted very quickly too. So So yeah, that's about it. Like Kaya said, for my comics, I make them like pink with pastel and to have like cute creatures because because it is also subversive. You kind of expect these type of comics to be like relatable, wholesome, and sometimes they are, but mostly I try to have a message that makes people go a little bit, oh, that's not what I expected. If
Mm.
that's the first time they see my comic. So it's to kind of tap into that part. I know that uh, people that tends to get attracted by this type of aesthetic also um, tend to value some of the things I value. So it's really a vehicle to deliver the message that I want. For this piece in particular, I think uh, hopefully the message is pretty clear. So what I would actually prefer is to see what other people took from it.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and read it through it for chat. We've got and give my illustration. But you've got this group of, are these wugs? Is that what that
Yeah, yeah,
so we've got
that's what
this
they're
this group of wugs. You and the head, you will never be a woman. You can't even have children. And then, you've got the little upset over here, moves over. You didn't receive the same socialization. And then the one upset moves over the next panel. Besides, just look at yourself. And then the last one moves over and then ends with feminist. And I mean, to me, it's all those ways that specifically I think of TERFs in a particular brand of feminism. Like we read the Scum Manifesto the other day, and it reeked of a particular brand of feminism that's very exclusionary to trans people, but also exclusionary to sex workers. And all of a sudden, we start seeing their control of womanhood and what it is to be a woman, and how it continuously excludes people that maybe they aren't even intending to exclude, but they end up excluding anyway. What do y'all think of it? What are your thoughts? What does it make you think of?
Just got to say that the Wugs are really good character designs.
Yeah.
Like they're so eye-catching. Like it's
Yeah.
it's genius.
And so expressive with just a little eye. I love that.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that work like this is especially important. We live in a society where people have like very short attention spans.
Mhm.
And, stuff like this, like artwork like this, is a very great way to deliver information in a way that's palatable, to people where they can understand it. When people read, especially having like a background in women's and gender studies and, being inside and out, a lot of literature and feminist discourse is very hard to read. Like,
Yes.
Judith Butler and Foucault and like people, I hated reading them because it's just like I read all of this and it's like I've learned nothing. It's just a bunch of jargon. So I really appreciate artwork like this because it's straight to the point. It's super cute. I love the character drawing. I love the line work. It's awesome. And I just love the message as well.
Yeah, kind of off of what Sunny. Oh, sorry, Lumi, were you gonna say something?
Nope, go for it.
Well, I guess like what Lumi was saying, I think of this like theory fatigue I had probably from like finishing like my degree is that like whether it's like talking about like gender or even just being trans, I am of the belief that trans people don't need to be experts in trans or gender theory to know themselves, to be able to express themselves. And I am not going to hold somebody's like validity on the opinions of queer and transness based on how much like Foucault, Butler, or like, Sarah Ahmed they've read. And I think that you can speak to such authenticity in the lived experience in ways that no theory or book, as outdated, is going to ever encapsulate. And I think this is like pretty evident like with TERFs as well. where we they like to cite Judith Butler a lot for. I think this, like, not to be like do the overreading like art critic thing, speaks a lot to, I think, like TERFs also like not knowing the space that they are in, and I think they like to quote Judith Butler a lot and use her theory on performativity as to why trans people basically aren't trying hard enough to be trans and how we'll never accept them. And Judith Butler themselves is non-binary, so it's like, don't y'all. So yeah, and I think that this is like very like speaks like to like the power and like the messaging of that, where you can do in like 4 panels what I think like a whole bunch of like lecturers frankly can't do in like 4 weeks of seminars. I love it.
That's what I've appreciated about Pink's comics, is such information in the cutest little comic. I'm sorry, was someone going to speak? Did I interrupt?
Yeah, no, sorry, it's me interrupting that. But I was going to say regarding the theory fatigue thing. The thing is, like again, because I'm autistic, I have absolutely no attention span, so I can't even read theory if I wanted to. And you know, comics like this are just an absolute gift. Seriously.
I promise
Yeah.
you're not missing out on much.
I mean, theory is my kink.
Then call me a masochist.
But yeah, I even being like someone who is pretty into theory, I really appreciate people who can bring those concepts and how it actually impacts our day-to-day world, and bring that in a really relatable, yes, meme in meme form way. Yeah. Thank you. Did chat, do you have any questions on any of anyone's art or Pink's in specific? Theory nopers, true. Theory not once. Only Pink wug memes. That's it.
You know, I wanted to say that what I like, the message that I deliver, like, most of the time they come from other people discussing these subjects, and from the things I read too. So it's really just to put messages in a different form, right? It doesn't invent anything new, but it's just to make them accessible, or put them in a way that can affect some people that might not have heard this message otherwise.
And I think you do an excellent job of it. I think a lot of times as artists, I guess maybe I shouldn't as a stream. Like, I feel like streaming can be art sometimes. I always feel like I have to have all new original ideas, but sometimes there are just really important messages that have already been said that you can express in a totally different way. And art, I think, does such a great job can do such a great job of doing that. So... Oh, you wanted to watch Spice Cam's video again? Yeah, we can absolutely hit that.
Yay, I be watching it all the time.
I
So
really
it's
love
okay.
that video. It's gorgeous. I love surrealism, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I just, I don't know, and I love the spiritual themes and stuff like that. I'm really into that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was getting when you were talking about like sci-fi and stuff. I'm the same way. Like, I love like alien, sci-fi, like all of that.
Yeah.
Sunny, I was curious, being as much of a theory head inadvertently as, like, you know, you have to be. Did you ever, or are you familiar with Ashley Baucus Clark's neurospeculative Afrofeminism?
No, I have actually
Oh my
never
god!
heard of that.
I know that sounds like a bunch of nonsense words, but it's some really good like
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like specifically talking about Afrofuturism, and I think like the way that it's like presented, it's made by this group called Hyphen Labs. I think it was part of like MIT's like Media Lab, one of their projects.
Mhm.
But it's like a series of virtual reality pieces, and I think like the way that you were talking about, I wanted to comment on like looking at like this art, like what does it feel, what does it elicit like within you? And I think when you make art that's always approaching theories of like, I mean subject positions of transness, but especially blackness, like that's gonna just get appreciated or understood in a different context. So one of the things that I liked about one of these pieces, again, it's neurospeculative Afrofeminism. I know it's like a long word. But it specifically one of those pieces, because it's a series, is going into this black hair salon, but it's like this like, you know, Afrofuturist, like a whole bunch of like blender rendered, like really good, like neon vaporwavy kind. And you kind of like just sit down and like the experience of being in a black hair salon and talking to somebody and like, you know, fucking like just having a little kiki is not going to be something that a lot of non-black people are familiar with. So in these ways that like I hate to use the word humanize, but when we talk about blackness, we talk about like, you know, sex or positivity, there is just going to be this thing that happens where a lot of us are thought terminating cliches. People think they understand our experiences. So in that way, I feel like the way that you can relate, because you can still appreciate black art and not be black, you know, by all means. I just think that the ways, like, it's just going to be happening through different lenses. And when I think about like the porn that I make, like, yeah, there's probably non-queer people who are consuming my content, or really, let's be real, haven't come to terms with their queerness yet. But really, I love when I can like make or see content, whether it's art or porn, or like, you know, that's like both to like so many like degrees. It's really affirming and it's really great to see. And I feel like the divide in between like how like you engage with that. I mean, like Lumi, to you, I feel like the things that you are like these scheduled streamers who talk about theory like on stream, that is an art. That is being able to keep up with and also like being able to inject and give yourself into that work. But for me, like, you know, by comparison, I do art in other places. And I don't know, my existence is a very politically like burdensome one. And sometimes when I come to Twitch, I'm here to vibe and I just happen to be my gay wonderful self, versus like the way that I
Yeah.
express or talk about my politics or the way I engage with theory happen other places. So the same mediums can be very different. It's like other people with like the needs that are being met and like the artistic fulfillment that you're feeling. But I love your work, and just like I love like all these like places I'm going with it. It's like it's great. I love it.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're gonna play through this as our and then get through our wrapping up a little bit. I love the music, by the way.
Thank you. It's drill music. Thank you, New York and the UK.
All right. Thank
Lumi,
you
with your
all.
permission,
Yes.
can I drop the link to the neurospeculative Afrofeminism piece,
Yes.
because people have been asking
Yes,
about it?
please.
Please.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop
do.
that in chat. I'm gonna drop it in the Discord too.
That is one hell of a title. I actually love that word.
I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
check
was
it out.
like-
Yeah.
It's like I think
that.
you would really like the work. It's like I'm seeing a lot of like through line between like a lot of the themes that you're covering. It's like it's good shit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you. I might peek in on this right after this panel if you don't mind. Looks very interesting.
I was just going to say, just one more thing I really want to do with my webcomic eventually is I'm trying to figure out how to put it in the public domain and still make a living off of it. Because what I'd really love to see is other people taking like all the ideas I've come up with and just kind of running with them. Because I've got like hundreds and hundreds of creature designs that I just want people to do whatever they want with them, basically.
Well, I don't know if you're into NFTs. I know a lot of people like have their own feelings about them, which I definitely understand. But with NFTs, like for example, there was a person, they were actually a child who made like a series of like a PFP's profile pictures called long necky ladies. And she made like a ton of like literally millions off of it. But she also like authorized like other artists to be able to make their own versions of the long necky ladies and stuff like that. So I feel like that's something that you would be interested in. And like you know, like cartoon illustrations is like really popular in the NFT space as well. That's a way for you to make money off of your art without having to give it to anybody else. The money like comes to you, and like that's it. And we can definitely talk about it more, like if you want to ask me questions about it, but I just want to throw that out there if that's something that you're interested in, because that's a way for you to do that.
Yeah, I think NFTs have been quite a contentious conversation overall, especially with some of the concerns around like specifically crypto. But I know I've had a few discussions on stream regarding NFTs and like some of the critiques and what the technologies could be used for, but
for me personally, like, regarding like the whole copyright thing, like regarding my work, is that I really do not. I'm very quite staunchly anti-copyright, because I mean, first of all, we need IP holds back things like solutions to the climate crisis and stuff like that. And, you know, for me, I would, like I said, I don't like kind of the idea of hoarding my work. I really want other people just to run buck wild with my ideas and
Yeah,
do
well,
what they want with it, you know, because I don't know, it's just I've always felt a bit strange about like creating something and then just it's all mine, you know. I don't know.
That's
That makes
well,
sense.
there are different types of licenses that you can basically look into. I know that this is very common for like in coding, where people create different types of software with different types of licenses that would dictate how they would like those to be used. So you can look into that.
Yeah, I think at the moment it is under a type of Creative Commons license. I've forgotten the name of it. It's the one where you can redistribute it, but for not for commercial purposes. But I'm gonna kind of explore that a little bit more. But I think what would be nice is just to see what other people do with the characters, basically, because, you know, like I said, there is this kind of idea that, you know, some of the characters I'm writing are not from my own perspective, and I would love to see people from those perspectives write those characters better, you know, interpret them, you know, how they want to, if that makes sense. Because I just think that'll be really cool. Because
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry.
sorry, what were you about to say?
I was going to say, I love where you're going with that. Like, you could being able to see multiple different, perhaps trans mask people, have different, like, scenes perhaps that they write with your character and just see the different, like, experiences and the different, I guess, little bits you get from that could be so interesting to bring different trans mask experiences together. I think that's a really cool idea.
Thank you. But yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh,
but
we were actually just about to wrap up since we got through our exhibits, and I really appreciate each of you coming in. So actually, Kaya, do you want to start and we'll go in reverse order?
okay.
Let us know, like, where can we find you? What project are you working on now? And yeah.
Yeah, so I am on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, DeviantArt, ArtStation, and well, my Facebook page is dead. There's no point on me promoting that. But I'm most active on Twitter, and so I'm creating a webcomic called Flower Punk, which is about radical compassion. And at the moment, the trailer for Flower Punk is up on my pinned tweet.
All right, thank you. And the links, by the way, the panelists, exclamation point panelists, gets you information on everyone's links and their names and their pronouns. What about you, Sunny? Where can we find you?
You can find me literally everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, which I went on a little bit of a hiatus because, like I said, I was learning Blender, and that took up literally all of my time. But I'm literally dropping a video next week on YouTube. So you can follow me on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I have a website as well. I sell prints. So if you want, like physical prints of my work, you can get physical prints. I also sell prints of my photography on Mariah, which is a black owned like shopping app. So I'm on there as well. And something big that I do have coming up is an Afrofuturism exhibit that one of my pieces is going to be featured in. Yes, awesome. They literally just sent me a photo. They just sent me a photo of the exhibit, and there's a bunch of like awesome black artists in there right with me. So like that's just awesome. But it's the Black Angel Zenko Hall exhibition. It's not like public yet. I still have to figure out like a date. I'm waiting on them to tell me like the date where like I can come up or where it's like visible to the public. So once I get that information, I'm gonna like let everybody know. But that should be opening up in March, and that's gonna be in New York. So that's one big thing that I have coming up. So that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pink, what about you? Where can we find you? What are you up to?
Well, currently the only and first art project I'm working on is this comic. Maybe there will be more types of content creation in the future, but I'm not sure if it will be art related. And you can find my work at pinkwork.live, and all the links will be there, and the archive of the comics and all that.
And last but not least, Faye. Oh, you're muted. You're almost a pro streamer at this point. Good job. That's
Hey,
real.
at least my captions work.
Oh, right in the heart.
I can help you fix that later, by the way.
I would love that. Thank you, Faye.
But anyway, chat, you can actually follow me here on Twitch. I haven't streamed in a while because my undergraduate college shut down my Windows account, so I had to restart my computer and my streaming setup with it. But twitch.tv/Faebryte, I've been like popping off in like the comments the chat since stream started. If you're over 18 and only if you're over 18, you can head over to like my Twitter. I have not posted to Twitter or made content on OnlyFans for a while because I don't have a legal ID to re-verify my age. A weird thing because I'm literally not getting younger, but I've been on a hiatus from that and streaming. I also do make content here on YouTube, but it has been similarly to Sunny, like a year-long hiatus. Well, I don't know if theirs was like a year long, but ain't been on there for a while. I also didn't get to talk about it much, but another project that I was involved with was this game called OnlyBans, which is specifically a video game that I was featured in talking about online sex work and sex workers' rights, and it's kind of educational. You can go to onlybansgame.com. And last off, I want to also maybe shout out a project where I am not like me solely, but we're giving money to BIPOC artists and art educators, specifically to have their work exhibited. It's called the Living Room Project, and it is specifically for, I also should say, BIPOC trans artists who've been affected like by the pandemic in the spirit of reparations and mutual aid. Because the University of Pennsylvania is a really racist like university that's like, you know, benefited from slave labor. So we got a grant project, and we are involved in getting $200 to people to just show their work or to host a Skillshare or talk about like their art. I also, because this is very America specific, need to clarify that by BIPOC, I mean Black people, and I mean non-white Indigenous people. That's really because like the project is in like the spirit of reparations. I know like the contentiousness of like, you know, classifying like what that is, but if that's the description that you fit, or you know somebody who does, I'm with permission going to drop the form. Fill it out. We're
Absolutely.
accepting applications year round. We have like $4,000 left to still give, and we would love to have some of your work. Is it okay if I drop the link for OnlyBans as well?
I think Jay already did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can't play it on stream, but yeah, go there, go to my Twitter if you want to see my nudes, but only if you're over 18. Faebryte on YouTube, Faebryte here on Twitch. I don't really post to Instagram a lot these days because I keep getting banned, but I will again someday.
Your Twitter banner, by the way, is absolute fucking fire.
Thank you. I've had a lot of looks over the years. So I'm gonna make a new one because I've been through some looks. I've just been like, you lose so much motivation to post hot pictures of yourself when the way you make money from it like doesn't work anymore.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's fair. Well,
But I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me.
yeah, thank you all for joining us. We had such a range, such a range of work, and I really appreciate each of you taking the time out of your days to come and talk to us about art and gender through art. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting this stream. It's just been really eye-opening for me. I just love listening to different perspectives about these kinds of topics as well. Because
Yeah.
it always makes me really aware that there's always more for me to learn, and that's really, you know, what I want to do. Try my best to be as open-minded as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaya, Faye, Pink, and Spice. I hope to catch you all again sometime soon. Maybe, yeah, we'll see. We'll figure out something in the
It's
future.
going to be in the stream where you draw live on stream, Lumi. You're going to do
gosh,
it, aren't
everyone
you?
came. Faye picking on me. You getting? I don't know about this.
We bully you because we love you, Lumi.
That's
We just
fair.
want what's best.
All
worry,
right.
Lumi.
Thank you all, and I'll see you soon. Okay.
Yes, bye everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all.
Bye.
Nice meeting y'all.
Wow.